Welcome to this special edition of the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast, where we delve into the creative processes and stories of 14 artists around the world. In these episodes, we go behind the scenes with artists who are part of the International Online Art Collective, learning their inspirations, challenges, and techniques while collaborating on our chain reaction project, beginning with one single piece. Each piece of art informs the next, provoking a chain reaction of other artworks until we have created a total of 100 artworks assembled into one big multimedia installation. In this episode, I have a guest podcast host to interview me, and her name is Ruth. Say your last name.
Christensen.
I love how she says it. I'm in my DC studio, and she is in, where are you, Ruth?
I am in my Dorset studio in the UK.
Awesome. So in this episode, we're going to learn a little bit about my process, and I have no idea what Ruth's going to ask me. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Sit back and relax and enjoy.
So, Caroline, it's my pleasure to turn the tables and ask you some questions for change.
Nice.
And hear a little bit about your creative process. So we're talking fairly specifically about the chain reaction, which is this exciting project which has been going on for almost 2 years now. And a little bit like myself, you travel a lot and you have studios in different parts of the States and sometimes outside the States, I think. And you've been in a few of your studios while we've been working on the chain reaction project. And how has that affected your inspiration behind the project, do you think?
You know, I get artwork from different artists, and that it inspires me. But what also inspires me is what is around me in whatever environment I'm in. I think I can remember one of the chains. I was in DC, and it was right about the time. Let's see who sent that to me. It was Adela sent me a bird. And when I saw the bird, I thought that bird just is longing to be set free. Like I was like, it felt so trapped, and I wanted to set it free. And I was in DC. My son and I rode our bikes to actually that was after Christie. I'm getting them all mixed up. Anyways, I was in the nation's capital at the Washington Monument, and so the Washington Monument made it into my painting. But what else made it into my painting was the idea of having to wear a mask, right? This brand new thing. And so during this chain reaction, where no matter where I was, just the fact that the world had changed was beginning to become part of my work, as well as others' works. I mean, I could see it. But in this particular painting, it was a self-portrait of me being masked, right? So I don't typically do self-portraits. And I just mishmashed two of the chains, because this one is actually not the liberation one. The one I'm talking about has a totally different name. But the liberation piece was in reaction to something that Christie had sent me. And it became like this winged eagle that was being set free. So I think in a couple of my, no matter where I was, pieces, the freedom was ringing through the art. Either wanting to be free, feeling joyous, feeling the light. I hope that answered your question.
It's interesting because it links in with another question I was going to ask you, which was basically we have our inspiration from the previous, obviously from the previous link, but we can't help but be influenced by events around us at the time. And maybe you can think of other events around the time which you felt profoundly influenced your work during the project.
Yes. So at the same time, and I'm going to go back to the one with the National Monument because it was right around the war in Ukraine, which really influenced my work because I launched into this entire traveling live painting performance, around the eastern part of the US and over into Hawaii, where I was painting sunflowers.
Mm.
And it made my way into the work because at the beginning, you know how we have processes in our work. There were sunflowers all in that work because I was here to paint the sunflowers. I do think world events certainly find their way into the art. Also, private events happening in your world. I remember when I was reacting to your jellyfish, I was getting ready to have a coastal art exhibition at a museum that was right by the harbor. And so, of course, the museum is across the street from the water. I know that you're on your sailboat. You're sending me moon jellies with tentacles, but I'm looking at a bunch of sailboats with their masts, and so all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I think that actually all those tentacles are the masts of sailboats. So I popped us right out of the water again, and and did like a not an up close, but more of a we're looking out into the water of sailboats rafted up. Because I think that I was actually reacting to where you were, like maybe what was in your surroundings. And then what was interesting was through interviewing Wendy, she took that, the masts of the sailboats, turned it on its side, and it became like the branches of trees.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah.
Maybe some of those masts had previously been branches of trees, so she's flipping it the other way, right?
Yeah, she could have. But it's interesting how we do this little dance of nature. Most everybody is dancing with nature, and the flavor of where people are makes it into their work. And then we have the artists who suddenly it becomes black and white. And Morrison.
Yeah.
But he's working with nature because he's making lotus imprints.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And not only is he speaking and reacting to nature, every single thing he touches is of nature. Either the brush is made from feathers, or the lotus stalk is, obviously a lotus stalk, and the ink he's using is however he creates his ink, right? So it's interesting that we're seeing the nature and he's like using the nature.
Yes. That's an interesting point. And he has also had to evolve his process because he moved countries in the middle of all of this.
Yes.
And that segues me into the next question. You've actually already covered my next question. I was going to ask you about sunflowers and sailing boats, but you've covered that already. And my next question I wanted to ask you was, how do you feel that your experience of the project, and also as an artist, as a professional artist, how do you feel that's changed in the 2 years that we've been working on this project?
Well, I would say that the project is a nice little dive into a little bit of anonymity, because I'm not able to share.
Yeah.
So that means that I can kind of try on some creative hats that maybe I haven't worked with before. And also what I have found with interviewing all the other artists is we're all working on a substrate that we're not used to. And so I'm watching and learning how they've all evolved into these really interesting styles of how they've done that, especially the digital artists, right?
Yes.
Who were so afraid at first. They're like, well, what are we supposed to do? But they've really, I think, evolved their styles. In my experience, I've used every one of my techniques on the board. And the one I was referring to with the sailboats in the harbor, I noticed that, most artists, if they're having to work small, are going to choose a small paintbrush. But I kind of flipped it on. I was like, I'm still going to use my big paintbrush, right? And see what happens, right? See what happens if I just use what I'm used to using. And the brush strokes were the same size as like a section of my painting, right? And so that was quite fun. I was like, well, yeah, of course, I'm going to do the water like that. And then on the one I was talking about with the eagle, I did my torn tissue paper technique, which is my intuitive whimsical style. And sure enough, instead of it turning into sailboats, uh, I saw the wings of an eagle. And then I just fleshed it out, right? So I was able to use all my different, because I have a very like defined whimsical sort of intuitive style, and then also the more I call it romantic expressionism, where I show up and I do sunflowers and iconic buildings and sailboats. That answer your question?
But yeah, absolutely fascinating. You've had a really interesting insight into all of our working processes because you've been asking all the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you must have really been seeing it from an interesting, you've seen it from all the standpoints. And I also love that you mentioned the anonymity thing, because that's been a big thing throughout this project, that you're not allowed to show the full artwork until we're ready to do the big reveal. You can't show the full piece of artwork until we get to whichever gallery I think is gonna show our works first. So that's going to be an exciting moment, and it will be the first time that we have all seen all the artworks together as well. So it will be exciting for us as artists as well.
I kind of see, go ahead. I had an idea.
No, go on. What were you going to say?
I kind of see the narratives are so important.
Yes.
And I also think that these interviews, once you watch them, are actually they're art in themselves. And I kind of see them playing in the background somehow and following the project.
Definitely. Oh, I'm seeing a massive video installation going along with this. So I really hope we can make that work.
Because everybody is, they're sharing in a way that shows the link itself. That kind of shows it all comes together. It's like, it's a puzzle that weaves it all together.
And that was what I was hoping, that it would all become like a great big jigsaw, and we all find our own piece. We are making the pieces as we go, and we're all linking together. We're all working together. We're all inspiring each other. We're thousands of miles apart, but we still have the power to heal and share and link and inspire. It's very special indeed.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be so cool if you could just go up and touch and then you hear the narrative?
Well, let's see if we can't make that happen.
Right?
Technology exists.
I know, right? That would be so cool. Anyways.
So Caroline, if we want to learn more about your work, where do we find you?
So everything, all of my social, which I'm on all the social, is Caroline. And then for Instagram, it's Caroline_Karp, KARP_artist. And then my website is carolinekarpartist.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, a little bit on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and Pinterest actually too. So yeah, and then in the show notes of this, I'm gonna add those things, and I'm also gonna put in all the information about chain reaction and where people can learn more about that and follow our journey. And we'll do another round of these, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm hoping we'll do another round after the big reveal, and then we can actually talk about the works with the works in front of us, because at the moment, no, it's hidden.
Yes, yeah. Well, thank you for taking time and interviewing me on this special edition.
It's been a great pleasure.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.